Céline Dion has been a famous singer and grace. Her voice, a delicate yet powerful instrument, has captivated millions, bringing fans to tears at every concert. But beyond the flashing lights and the sea of adoring fans, Céline is a woman who seeks a quiet, humble life away from the stage. After several tours, Céline enjoyed some rest. During one of these rare breaks, she walked the streets of her hometown of Montreal on a clear evening. She wore a sweater and jeans with a scarf. The light from the street lamps reflected on the sidewalks. Céline wandered, letting the quiet of the night soothe her weary soul. During this peaceful time, she cherished the opportunity to reconnect with her roots, to experience the ordinary moments she often missed. Suddenly, her thoughts were interrupted, and her attention fell on a small local grocery store nestled between two buildings along the street. She looked a small figure standing just outside the door. A boy, 9 years old, leaned lightly against the wall, his small frame hunched under the weight of a thin coat. The boy, seemingly lost in thought, occasionally glanced through the glass with longing eyes, a fleeting expression of hunger and uncertainty on his face. Céline felt a strange pull. Before her eyes was not just a boy standing silently on a Montreal street, but the image of a child struggling to face difficulties without anyone to turn to. She thought of the children she had known growing up, children who had to face challenges they should not have faced. A deep sense of empathy urged Céline to do something. She took a deep breath. She approached the boy. He didn't seem to notice her presence. Céline didn't want to startle him, so she called softly. "Hello? Are you okay?" The boy was in surprise, head up, his eyes wide, as if he hadn't expected anyone to speak to him. His initial reaction was a mixture of hesitance and shyness. For a moment, Céline wondered if he would simply walk away or pretend he hadn't heard her. But then, the boy spoke, his voice soft and tinged with uncertainty. He said, looking down at the ground, his words carrying a of shyness, "My mother works late, and I'm hungry, but I don't have enough money for food." His words trailed off, leaving an uncomfortable silence between them. Céline's heart tightened as she listened. She could see the boy's internal struggle, the battle between wanting to ask for help and the fear of looking weak. Céline understood that fear well. She had experienced it herself in different ways throughout her life. She looked at him with a warm, reassuring smile, hoping to ease some of the tension he felt. The boy looked up at her, his expression still uncertain but more hopeful. Céline could sense his hesitation. He was, after all, just a child, trying to maintain his dignity in a difficult situation. She helped in a way that would allow him to save face and feel immersed. She went into the store to pick up some things, then came out and gave them to the boy and said, "I just bought too much," she explained, holding up a few grocery bags she'd picked up inside. "Do you want to eat with me? We can stop somewhere and eat together if you'd like." The boy blinked, his eyes flicking from her to the bags, trying to process what she had said. He seemed torn, unsure of whether he should accept or decline the offer. But Céline's gentle tone, her quiet presence, reassured him. Slowly, almost shyly, he nodded. "Okay," and he said, his voice barely above a whisper. With a soft sigh of relief, he stepped forward and took one of the bags from Céline's hands. Together, they began to walk down the street, the soft rhythm of their footsteps, the only company in the night. Their footsteps echoed softly in the silence of the night. Céline glanced at the boy, smiling warmly, and then she asked softly, "What's your name?" He looked up at her, smiling shyly before replying, "My name is Lucas." Céline repeated the name softly, as if she were fully aware of the simplicity and significance of this exchange. "Lucas," as she said, her voice soft but affectionate. That's a beautiful name. After a moment, Lucas turned to Céline, his eyes shining with curiosity. Are you Céline Dion? Céline nodded gently and smiled as she replied, her voice warm and humble. Today, I am just an ordinary person like you, not a celebrity. And she said, her eyes filled with sincerity, we are just two people sharing a peaceful time. Lucas held the bag with a nervous grip, still not quite believing what was happening. Here he was, walking next to a woman who, just days ago, had been on the front pages of every newspaper. Yet now, she was simply a kind stranger, helping him in a way he had never expected. It didn't feel real, but the warmth of Céline's presence, her calm and kind demeanor, told him that this was more than just a fleeting moment of pity. How far do you live from here? Céline asked gently, her voice breaking the silence between them. As they continued walking, Lucas replied softly, his eyes downcast as if unsure how much to reveal. My house is just a few blocks away. Céline nodded. She wanted more talk to him, but over the years, she had learned that sometimes the best way to get someone to open up wasn't to force them to talk, but to simply let them feel safe in silence. And that's exactly what she did. She walked with him, her quiet presence offering a kind of security to Lucas. As they reached a small cafe on a corner, Céline suggested, would you like to stop here and have something warm to eat? Her offer was gentle but firm, as though allowing him to decide without pressure. She knew that for a boy like Lucas, the idea of accepting food from a stranger might not feel comfortable at first. But Céline understood the language of the heart and knew the importance of making others feel at ease. Lucas hesitated for only a moment before he nodded. Yes, he whispered. His voice, though small, held a sense of relief. The cafe, a cozy little spot that had been there for decades, was nearly empty at this hour. A barista, a young woman with dark hair tied into a neat ponytail, greeted them with a warm smile as they stepped inside. The warmth of the cafe enveloped them like a blanket, and the comforting scent of freshly brewed coffee and pastries filled the air. Céline led Lucas to a small corner table by the window. She placed the bags down and motioned for him to sit. The barista brought over menus, and Céline ordered 2 cups of hot chocolate, along with a couple of sandwiches. Though initially, Lucas was shy and reserved, finally allowed himself to relax. The warmth from the food and the gentle ambiance of the cafe slowly thawing the walls he had built around himself. Lucas seemed to consider carefully, then asked, do you ever get lonely? Celine's heart stirred at the question. For a moment, she was silent, staring out the window. The question had caught her off guard, yet she understood the weight behind it. Yes, sometimes, she answered quietly, but I try to remember that loneliness isn't always about being alone. It's about not feeling seen, not feeling understood. Fame gave her everything she had ever dreamed of. Success, adoration, and a platform to share her art. But it also left her with a sense of distance from the people she longed to connect with most. That's why moments like this are so important. Lucas nodded slowly, as if the weight of her words had settled inside him. I get that, and he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Sometimes I feel alone even when I'm with people. My mum, she works a lot, and I don't have anyone else. Celine's heart ached for him. She reached across the table and placed her hand gently over his, a silent gesture of comfort. You're not alone, Lucas, she said softly. The sandwiches and hot chocolates arrived, their warmth rising in the air, mingling with the scent of freshly baked bread. Lucas looked down at the plate in front of him, his eyes lingering on the food for a moment before he finally picked up his sandwich. His hands trembled slightly as he took a small bite, and Céline noticed the subtle way his shoulders relaxed, as though the weight of worry had finally begun to lift, if only for a moment. "Is it good?" Céline asked softly, her voice filled with genuine interest. Lucas nodded slowly, his mouth still full. "Yes," he mumbled, swallowing before continuing. "It's really good." He paused as if gathering his thoughts. "I don't remember the last time I had a real meal. I usually just eat what I can find. You know, leftovers or whatever." Celine's heart tightened as she listened. She had known hunger before, though not in the same way. As a child, she had always had the comfort of family and love, but she understood the ache of wanting something more. "I'm happy you like it," as she said, her voice gentle. "You deserve to eat well, Lucas. Everyone does." For a moment, Lucas simply stared down at his food. Then, after a long pause, he looked up at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper. Perhaps a quiet understanding. "Why are you being so nice to me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't even know me. You're famous. You could be doing anything, right?" Céline smiled softly, her eyes softening as she looked at him. She could feel the sincerity in his question, the curiosity in his young heart. It wasn't often that she had the chance to explain herself like this, especially to someone who didn't know her as an international star, but as just another person trying to make a difference. She began, her voice filled with warmth. "Fame is just a title, but who we are, deep down, that's what matters. I've had people show me kindness when I needed it the most, people who didn't expect anything in return. And I've learned that no matter who you are, no matter what your life looks like, it's always important to be kind. We all go through tough times. It's part of being human." Lucas listened intently, his gaze steady. He had heard people talk about kindness before, but never like this, never in such a genuine way, as though it was the only thing that mattered. His mind seemed to race, trying to process everything she had said. Kindness, no matter how small, could change someone's life. He had never thought of it that way before, but in that moment, something inside him shifted. "I get it," Lucas said slowly, his voice more confident now, as if he was speaking a truth that had just been unlocked inside of him. "You're right. It's not about fame or anything. It's just about doing the right thing, right?" Céline nodded, her smile soft and knowing. "Exactly. It's about doing what's right. You don't need to be famous to make a difference in someone's life. Sometimes it's the quiet acts of kindness that matter the most." As they sat there, eating and talking, the bond between them seemed to grow. It wasn't just the sharing of food or the kind gestures. It was something deeper, something that transcended the physical world they inhabited. It was the connection of two human beings, finding solace and each other's empathy, even if just for a short time. After they finished their meal, Céline stood up and motioned for Lucas to follow her. "Come on," as she said. "Let me take you a place." Lucas, still a bit confused, but trusting, stood up and followed her out of the cafe. Céline led him to a small office building tucked in between two larger structures. "This," she said with a smile, "is where I work on a lot of my charitable efforts. And tonight, I'm going to make sure you and your mum have everything you need." Lucas's eyes widened in surprise. "Really?" She simply smiled, her eyes twinkling with warmth. Céline nodded, her voice steady but filled with compassion. "You deserve it. No one should go through life without the help they need. And now, you know that kindness exists. That's all that matters." Lucas stood frozen for a moment, trying to process what Céline had just told him. He had grown accustomed to doing things on his own, to carrying the weight of life's difficulties without asking for help. But now, standing in front of this woman, he felt a profound shift inside himself. There was no way to put into words the gratitude that swelled in his chest, nor the disbelief that something so unexpected could happen. I don't know what to say, Lucas finally managed, his voice trembling with emotion. Thank you so much. Céline gave him a soft smile, her eyes warm and understanding. There's no need to thank me, Lucas. What I did is just a small thing. Céline stepped forward and placed a hand on Lucas's shoulder, her voice gentle as she spoke. I know this won't solve everything, but it's a start. It's a way to make sure you and your mum are taken care of. You don't have to do it all alone. Lucas swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion. Why? Why are you doing all this for me? Céline knelt in front of him, meeting his gaze with a tenderness that made his heart ache. Because when we see someone in need, it's our job to help. It doesn't matter who they are or where they come from. We're all human, and sometimes all we need is a little kindness to get through. Lucas nodded, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. It was still hard to believe. Everything that had happened in the past few hours felt like a dream. Céline had changed his life, and he would never forget this moment. Thank you, Lucas whispered, his voice barely audible, but filled with so much sincerity that it made Céline's heart swell with pride. I'll never forget this, Céline said, her voice steady but full of emotion. Don't ever forget that kindness can come from anywhere, even when you least expect it. For the first time in a long time, Lucas felt like he could breathe freely. He was no longer burdened by the weight of his struggles. He was given a new sense of hope, a new understanding of the world around him. Then, they backed to the street corner where they had met. Céline turned to Lucas, her smile bright and full of warmth. I know things might still be tough, as she said, but just remember, there are always people who care, and you don't have to face anything alone. Lucas nodded, a small but genuine smile forming on his lips. I'll remember you, Céline. I'll remember what you did for me. And with that, the two of them said their goodbyes, each of them walking away with a heart full of gratitude and a renewed sense of what it meant to be human. For Lucas, it was the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one filled with possibilities that had once seemed out of reach. And for Céline, it was another quiet reminder that the greatest moments of her life were not found on a stage, but in the simple acts of kindness she could offer to others. Céline felt happy in a way she had never anticipated. There was no fanfare, no red carpet, just the quiet satisfaction that comes with knowing you've done something good. She didn't need the world to know what she had done. The only thing that mattered was that Lucas and his mother would have a little more hope, a little more peace. This story helps us realize the true meaning of kindness. It was about giving, not for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. And sometimes those small, quiet moments of connection could change everything. Thank you for watching the video. Please share your feelings about this story by leaving a comment below. Don't forget to like and follow us for more inspiring stories. Hope to see you soon.